Hello everyone, it's Katrina from the Alluring Bead Boutique, and I'm here today to show you guys something that I'm working on. I've created these little components, and I'm going to be creating a beautiful bracelet out of it, but I also can see where it's going to be really easy to make a pair of earrings and a necklace. And my inspiration came from these little Tanzanite peacock dagger beads that Eureka Beads sent me as a free gift. So let's talk about the rest of the materials that you're going to need. You're going to need some 10mm crystals, round crystals, and I'm using, excuse me, one purple, one red, one blue, one orange, one green, and 2 yellows. So I'm going to use 7 to make 7 components. Then you're going to need, for each of your little components, you'll need 4 crescent, 2-hole crescent beads, and I'm just using silver. You're going to need 4 for each unit of a super duo, and I'm using the these are the crystal vitriol. Got these at Hobby Lobby, and as you can see, they've got the same little rainbow colors as the spots on the dagger, so that's why I chose those. Then you're going to need some 6mm. You'll need 26, excuse me, not 6mm, 60 seed beads, 20 for each component, and then 20 of these little 11/0s. And these are just Rocal beads. Actually, no, these are 11/0 seed beads. I got these both from Hobby Lobby. These are check glass. And the 6/0 is gunmetal. The 11/0 is jet opaque. So those are the materials you need for each little component. So I'll have a total of 7, so I'll need to multiply each of these little piles by 7. And then when I get ready to put it all together, we'll be using more of these same little components here. Or, excuse me, these same little beads right here. And this is all check glass beads. All right, so let me clean this up, and I'm going to come back and show you how to make one of the components, and then we'll go from there. All right, so I'm using 6-pound test black smoke or whatever fire line, and I'm using a size 12 beading needle. And the reason I'm using a 12 is because when you get ready to move around some of these areas, it does get a little tight. Okay, so I have a 6/0, a super duo, a 6/0, and a crescent. The trick to this is just to make sure that you pick up all your crescents in the same direction through the same hole. So I'm going through the top hole of my crescent, and I have the cup part facing up. All right, so we're just going to repeat that 4 times. 6/0, super duo, 6/0, crescent, 6/0, super duo, 6/0, crescent. If I could get in hole. And then one more time. 6/0, super duo, 6/0, and my last crescent. And what I'm going to do is bring that all the way down to my tail thread, or to the end of my thread. And because I'm going to tie a knot once I pass through these beads again, I don't really need a large tail. So I'm going to take my needle and go right back up through all of the same beads in the same holes of my 2-hole beads. One more time. Oops. And I'm going to hold on to my tail thread there as I pull, so I don't pull it through accidentally. So I have this little loop of beads. I have to finish up getting through all of them so that my tail thread and working thread are coming out between the same 2 beads. Just like that. There's my working thread coming out of the crescent. My tail thread's coming out of this 6/0. And now I'm just going to tie a knot. And by that I mean I'm going to do 2 overhand knots, making sure that my thread falls in between the same 2 beads. That 6/0 and that crescent. I'm going to tie one more overhand knot. Make sure that it falls in the right place. Pull nice and snug. And now I know that I exited the crescent bead last, so I know I must go in this direction. So I'll pass through the 6-0, the super duo, and the 6-0. Pull. Just moves you away from your knot. And then I want to go through the very next crescent, but just the crescent. And I'm going through the same hole that I went through when I strung on my beads and made my circle. And this is what your beadwork will look like, and it doesn't really matter if your beads flip around and you little 2-hole beads, because we're getting ready to bring them into position. So I'm going to turn this over. I'm exiting right here on the left-hand side of this crescent. Now I'm going to go through the other hole of my crescent bead from left to right, just like that. Then I'm going to pick up a 6-0. I'm going to go through the open hole of the super duo in the same direction. Let me get my tail thread pulled down so you can see what I have. I'm putting that 6-0 bead right above the previous 6-0 bead. And then I'm going to pick up another 6-0 and pass through the open hole of the next crescent. And this is what your work looks like. You'll have this little X shape made between the 2 holes of your super duo. So now I'm coming out of the open hole of this crescent, and I'm just going to repeat this all the way around. I'm going to pick up a 6-0, go through the next open hole in the super duo, pick up another one, 6-0, go through the open hole of my next crescent. And I'm trying to keep my tension fairly snug as I work my way around to form this little cup. And this is what I'm going to set my 10mm crystal in. One more. Go through the next crescent. 6-0. Open hole super duo. And now I'm back around to the first crescent. So I'll pick up this 6-0. I'm going to go through the top hole here to position that seed bead right above the other one. And I went ahead and passed through the next 6-0 bead in line. And so this is what my work looks like. I have this little cup shape. Here's my tail thread. I'm just going to hold it back out of the way. And see how all my crescents are facing the same way. And now I want to work my way forward to be exiting out of one of my super duos. So I'm going to pass through the next, my super duo, my 6-0, my crescent, and I'm using these same holes of the 2-hole beads that I just went through. And I'm coming out of this 6-0, I got to pass through this super duo right there. So you can see right here that I'm coming out to the right-hand side of this super duo. I'm going to pick up my 10mm crystal, I'm going to slide it down, and I'm going to drop it right into this little cup, just like that. Now my thread was coming out to the right of the super duo here. So I'm going to take my needle, and I'm going to pass through the super duo here on the opposite side from left to right, just like that. Now I'm going to pull it all into place, not catch my tail thread. I'm going to get that out of the way. Then I'm going to come back through my crystal. Now my working thread is on the right hand side of this super duo, so pass back through my crystal. Oops, small earthquake. Because I was coming out on the right-hand side of this super duo, I want to go back through the super duo I started from left to right. I'm going to pull everything nice and snug. And there you can see I've got the little bead sitting inside. Now I'm going to close this up just a bit. So I'm coming out of this super duo to the right. I'm going to pass through the next 6-0 seed bead, crescent, and 6-0 seed bead. I'm going to pull my work snug. Now we're going to position our last 4 6/0s. So pick up a 6/0. You're coming out of this 6/0 bead right here. I want you to go straight into the next set of 6/0 crescent 6/0. Pull that bead into position. Now this bead will be sitting above your super duo, just like that. Pull it nice and snug. Pick up another one. Skip over that super duo. Pass through your next 6/0 crescent and 6/0. And do this till you've come all the way back around your beadwork. Picking up one, skipping over the super duo, going through the next 3 beads. I'm going to pick up my last 6/0 bead, skip over my super duo, and go through my next 3 beads. 6/0 crescent, 6/0. So now I'm back around to where I started from, but I need to step up into this first 6/0 I added in this last round. So pass on through that 6/0 that's sitting above the super duo, right there. Alright, so now we're going to put our little black 11/0s. And we're only going to use these last 4 seed beads we added sitting above each super duo. I want you to pick up 5 of your little 11/0 check glass beads. Skip over these 3 beads and pass through the next 6/0 sitting above your next super duo that you added in the previous round, and pull it in nice and snug. Let's see if I can get a little bit better view here. You're going to be sitting these 5 little seed beads between that 6/0 and that 6/0. And we're going to repeat that till we've gone all the way around. So I'll pick up 5. Skipping over all 3 of those, going into the next 6/0 from my previous round, sitting above that next super duo. Pull nice and snug. Repeat. Pick up 5. Skip over the next 3 beads, come through the next 6/0 over my next super duo. If you'll notice, it's forming this little diamond shape over the crystal. All right, pick up your last 5. And we're going to come through that first 6/0 bead we started from. We're skipping these 3, 6/0 crescent, 6/0. We're coming into this bead here sitting above our super duo. And the reason I'm not cutting my tail thread off is because I'm going to use it to secure my working thread. Let me come back out just a little. All right, so now I want to tighten up these little black beads that I just added all the way around. So I'm exiting this 6/0. I need to take my needle. I want to pass through all 5 of those little black seed beads, and I want you to make sure that you don't skip any. Come through all 5. Pull snug inwards over top of your crystal, then come through that next 6/0 bead, and I'm going to go ahead and come through the next 6/0 and the next 5 11/0s, making sure I don't skip any beads, and I'm pulling snugly towards my crystal. Alright, let's repeat that again. Come through your next 6/0, your next 5 11/0s, and if you can get into it, come through that next 6/0. But just make sure you don't skip any beads or you'll have an exposed thread. Alright, so now I just need to come through these last 5 11/0s in my 6/0 here. So I'm coming out of a 6/0. My light, when I try to light things up to where the camera shows up good, or the under the camera, makes it a little bit harder for me to see up above. So let's go through. There we go. Now I've got all 5 of my seed beads, my 11/0s, in my next 6/0. And I'm coming on through. And then I'm just going to pull everything nice and snug. And see how that shaped my little 11/0 beads to where it makes a nice little shaped diamond effect there. Right, so now we need to tie this off. So the way I've been doing it for all the rest of my components, I'm coming out of this 6/0. I'm going to go down through the 6/0 crescent 6/0 below, because that follows my original thread path. I'm going to go through those beads, pull my thread nice and snug, and then I'm going to come through that the super duo, the same the whole of the same line that I'm working on. So I'm coming out of this bead, I'm going through the top of that super duo, and only that super duo. Now I'm going to get down to where my tail thread is. So you can see my thread is coming out here, out of this hole closest to me on the super duo. Now I'm going to go back in the opposite direction through the hole that was furthest away from me on that super duo. So I'm just reversing direction. And if you can get through the seed bead and the crescent, then that's great. I made it through the super duo and the seed bead there, the 6/0, in the opposite direction. When I pull, that snugs my thread up in between this little intersection here on the super duo, so you don't see exposed thread. All right, so now I want to be coming, I've got to come all the way around to this crescent in this seed bead. So I'm just going to work around in a circle. I'm coming out of that 6/0, we'll go through my crescent and my 6/0. Now I'm going to go through the next super duo, 6/0, and hopefully that crescent. But if I can't, I'll take them a few at a time. So I made it through the super duo and the 6/0. Now I'm going to come through the crescent. I got the 6/0, the crescent and the 6/0. Just a little bit further. And you get through this super duo, this 6/0, and this crescent. Now you'll see that my needle actually went through this next 6/0 as well. I'm going to go ahead and let it slide through there. Then I'm going to take my needle and go backwards through just that 6/0, so my two threads are once again meeting up between the same two beads, which is that crescent and that 6/0 right there. So now I'm just going to tie 2 more overhand knots with my working thread and my tail thread. There's 1, making sure that my knot lands between that crescent and that 6/0. There's 2. I'm going to pull it nice and snug. And I was moving in this direction, so I'm going to go through my next 6/0 and my next super duo. And I'm going to pull my knot into those beads. I give it a nice sharp tug, and that gets me away from my knot so I can end my thread. I'm just going to take my scissors and end my thread. Take my scissors and cut off my tail thread. So now I have all 7 of these little components put together. And this is the way that I want them to look. You're free to choose any colors or combinations of colors that you want if you want to continue and make this bracelet. And so what I'd like for you to do is go ahead and pause me now, get your components made, and then meet me back here and I'll show you how I want to put this thing together. Alright, so I figured out how I want to join my components together. But I'm going to start from the opposite end, and I'm going to show you how I'm doing it. I wanted to start at the end because I'm going to show you how to sew in with a new thread. I'm going to go through the 6/0 in my super duo. Pull down and leave myself just like about an inch or so tail. Now I'm going to come back through my super duo, the 6/0 and the crescent bead in the lower hole here. Like that, and pull my thread all the way through, holding on to my tail. Now I'm coming out of this crescent here on the lower hole. I'm going to go back up through the opposite hole, or the other hole of my crescent in the opposite direction. And if you pass through your 6/0 bead, just back yourself back out of it, because you want your tail thread and your working thread to be both coming out between your crescent and your 6/0 bead. Now you can just go ahead and tie 2 overhand knots making sure that they cinch down in between the crescent and the 6/0, just like we did before, so we don't have any exposed thread showing. No, I didn't get my thread through. Now, there's my 2 overhand knots, like that. And my thread is between that crescent and the 6/0. So now I'm going to pass back through my 6/0 and my super duo, because like I said, I wanted to be coming out of the super duo. And give a little tug, and my knot cinches in between, right in under this 6/0 bead. So now I'm ready to make a connection. Now I want my yellow bead, the bead hole and the crystal, be facing left to right. So I'm going to go ahead and situate that super duo that I want to be working with right here. Now I'm coming out of the top hole of this super duo, so I'll be working with the top hole of this one. But first I'm going to pick up an 11/0, a 6/0, an 11/0, one of my super duos, an 11/0, a 6/0, and an 11/0. And I'm coming out of that top hole of that super duo, and I'm coming out on this side, going away from me. So I'm going to take my needle and I'm going to come back through the top hole of the super duo on my other component, coming towards me. And like I said, it's really hard to get through just the super duo, so I have to pass through that 6/0, pull everything in, but then I got to come back out of the 6/0, because we're just working with the super duos. And I've created this little bridge of beads sitting here between the 2 super duos. So now I need to create another bridge just exactly the same way. 11/0, 6/0, 11/0, super duo, 11/0, 6/0, 11/0. And now I'm just going to come right back through the top hole of the super duo I started with, right here. And it's very, very tight when you're trying to work on the top of your components. So just take your time, make sure you get into the right holes. If you pass through the 6/0, you know you'll have to back out of it. But that's what I've been having to do pretty much, you know, the whole time I was figuring out how I wanted to put my components together. I'm having to get through that 6/0 and then come right back out. So I'm exiting my super duo. Okay, so now I'm exiting my super duo from the top. I'm flipping my work over, and you can tell that because my black seed beads are on this side of my components. So now I want to come through the bottom hole of my super duo. And it's a lot easier just to go through the super duo on the bottom because the angle is not as tight. Alright, so now that I'm coming out of the bottom hole, I'm going to be using the same super duos on my bridges I just created. But I'll still need to pick up an 11/0, a 6/0, and 11/0. So now I'm going to take my needle and I'm going to go through the bottom hole of the super duo on the same side. Pull it through so that I have this little bridge looking just like this on this side of my super duo. It'll be easier to see in a moment when I get the other one on. So now I'm exiting that super duo. I need to pick up an 11/0, a 6/0, and 11/0, and now I need to come through the bottom of the super duo on my opposite component. And you know, like I said, if you get through that 6/0, just go ahead and work it through, and then just come right back out of the 6/0. And this is what I've been having to do, but I like the way it looks, so I'm going to keep on with it. It's not that much of a hassle. Now you can see really clearly the little bridge on that side between the 2 components. So now I need to create the lower half of my bridge on the left side here. So I'm picking up 11/0, 6/0, 11/0, come through the free hole of the super duo, on my little bridge on this side. Then pick up an 11-0, a 6-0, and 11-0, and we're going to come through the bottom of the super duo on the opposite component. So just take your time, work yourself around. When you pull everything tight, this is what your beadwork's going to look like. You'll have your two little components, and then you'll have this nice little bridge in between on both sides. And I really like it like that because these components are chunky, so I wanted the connection section here between them to be chunky too. Okay, so now I have added my yellow component to my green one. My green one's going to be on the outside, so I need to add the blue one on this side of the yellow one. So I must work my way back around. So I'm coming out of the super duo here on the bottom of my, next to my green crystal. I need to pass through the beads on the bottom of this little bridge I just created and make sure not to skip any. So I want to get into my 11-0, 6-0, 11-0, then the super duo here on the side of the connection. Pull your string, pull your thread. Then you're going to come through the next 11-0, 6-0, and 11-0 over here towards the yellow component. And pull your thread. Now to cinch everything up, I have to come back through that super duo. And this time, when I pass through it, it's fine to go ahead and pass through my 6-0 also, because now I'm going to work my way around to the other side of this crystal. So I'm passing through the super duo on the bottom, the 6-0 next to it. And when I pull tight, you'll see that it pulls my connection nice into place. I got to continue around to the super duo on the opposite side. So I'm just going to go through my crescent, my 6-0 next in line. Now when you get here, you can make your own choice. You can either go through the super duo or the 6-0 above it. I'm going to go through the super duo because I want everything to pull together and make it just a little bit more uniform looking right there. Now I'm going to go through the next crescent, the next 6-0, and I'm getting ready to be into position to add my next unit together. So I've just got to come through, and I'm on the bottom. Here's my black bead, so I got to go through the bottom hole of that super duo right there. And now I can add my blue component. Alright, so I know I need to use this super duo, and I'm coming out of the bottom of that super duo. So the first thing I'm going to do is pick up my 11-0, my 6-0, my 11-0, my super duo, an 11-0, a 6-0, and an 11-0. Now I'm coming out of the bottom of this super duo, so I know I need to go into the bottom of this super duo. My thread is down closest to me, so I'll go away from myself just like that with my needle. And when I pull it in, everything is correct. So now I need to just pick up again an 11-0, 6-0, 11-0, another super duo, and 11-0, a 6-0, and an 11-0. And now I'm just going to bring those down off of my needle so I can work. I'm in the bottom of these beads, so when I come back to this side, I need to go through the bottom super duo, just like that. And I'm sorry, out of frame. I'm coming back around, so I'm going to come through the bottom super duo one more time, and then I'm exiting my super duo at the bottom. Now I'm going to take my needle and come through the top hole of my super duo from the same side that I'm on, and go in the opposite direction. And here's where my needle, once again, is going to want to go through that 6-0. So I'm just going to let it, and then I'm going to back right back out of just the 6-0 right there. So I'm in the super duo, coming out of a super duo. Now once again, I'm just going to add the beads on the top of this little bridge. So I'm picking up an 11-0, a 6-0, and an 11-0. I'm going to come through the open hole of the super duo back towards my new bead component I'm adding. Then I'll have to pick up an 11-0, a 6-0, and 11-0. And now I'm going to come through the top of this super duo on my opposite component. And I know for a fact that it's going to want to go right through that 6-0 bead too, so I'll just go ahead and wiggle till I can get it in here. Then I'm going to come back out of my 6-0 so that my thread is exiting the super duo, just like we've been doing. Now I need to complete this part. I'm sorry, I'm sliding around, guys. Just a minute here. Alright, so now I need to complete the upper portion of the bridge on the left side. So I pick up my 11-0, 6-0, 11-0. Pick up the open hole of that super duo in the middle. And then repeat my pickup. An 11-0, 6-0, 11-0. And now I'm going to come through the top of the super duo here on the other component, as well as the 6-0, like I said, because I'm working on the top now. It's just easier to backtrack out than to sit and wiggle my needle forever and ever. Anyway, so now that's all you have to do. And then remember, when you get this bridge added here, you'll need to move through your beads to your newest component added. So I'll have to go through this 11-0, 6-0, 11-0, and super duo right here on this side of my bridge. And I'm going to come through the 11-0, the 6-0, and the 11-0 on the opposite side of the super duo towards my last component I've added, which is this blue one. And now I'm going to come right back through the top hole of my super duo, and this time I'm going to, when I pass through the 6-0, I'm just going to go ahead and come on through it because I need to move around to the opposite side of this new component, just like that. So now I'm coming out of the 6-0. I'm going to move through these beads on the top side till I'm exiting the super duo on the opposite end. So for me, that's a crescent and a 6-0, and then this super duo and 6-0, crescent, 6-0, and then the super duo. Once you went through the 6-0s, you can see, because I'm on the top side again, so I need to back out of just my 6-0. So then I'm exiting my super duo. And now I want you to just keep on till you have all of your little components connected. Then I'm going to meet you back and show you how to finish off the bracelet. Alright, so here I am. And what I did, since I had joined mine in the center, I had to stitch myself around till I'm coming out the super duo on the opposite side of my connector piece here, just like that. So in order to do the bracelet, once I got everything put together, I'm taking a little measurement here. Now I have like a 6.5-inch wrist, and here's where I am right now as far as my beadwork goes. So if I were going to be adding a clasp, you know, I would have to add something relatively short in order for it to fit my wrist correctly. Now, if you have a bigger wrist and you want to, you know, you need to add another component or two, you know, what I suggest is that you continue on in your going opposite around. Like I would go, here I have a green and an orange, there's yellow and yellow, red and blue and red, and then the purple is my center bead. So if I had to add more components on around from this, I think what I would do would be to add another yellow maybe on each end, and then go back to blue here and red here, just whatever you want to do. If you only need one, you could go ahead and just add another purple one like I did in the center. That would look really cool. You know, but I'm going to be making mine into a bangle style. And the reason is because I just love this chunky thing, and I think it'll roll on pretty easily. I think I have enough length to just add the connector piece between these two components, my end components, and I should be able to roll this onto my wrist. So that's how I'm going to finish mine up. And I'm just going to show you really quick how you would go about doing that. If you wanted to add a clasp, you can, you know, take your clasp and a few seed beads and then add it here to your super duos. But I'm not going to, so I don't have a way to show you that right now. So I'm going to pick up an 11-0, a 6-0, an 11-0, a super duo, 11-0, 6-0, 11-0, just like we did before. So I have that on my needle. Now I'm coming out of the bottom of the super duo here, and I'm coming out of the hole that's closest to me. So I need to come to my component on the other end. I need to come through the bottom, but I need to go away from myself. So I want to pass through the hole, going away from myself, and pull it together like that, just like we were doing before. Only now we're connecting these two ends. So 11-0, 6-0, 11-0, super duo, 11-0, 6-0, 11-0, and then I need to come back around through this bottom super duo on this side and towards myself. And when I pull it together, then I have my little bridge sitting right like that. And now I need to get into the top hole, so I'm coming out of the bottom hole here. So I'm just going to pass my needle right through the top hole of the super duo in the opposite direction, same way I have been doing. I had to pick up that 6-0, so I need to backtrack. So that I'm exiting just my super duo. Now, I'm going to be using the same super duos like we did before, so I just need to pick up an 11-0, a 6-0, an 11-0. Then I need to pick up the open hole of this super duo on the same side of the beadwork that my working thread is exiting. Pull that through. Pick up another 11-0, 6-0, 11-0, and then I'm going to come through the top hole of this super duo on the opposite component. And, you know, because I'm working with the top, I'm having to, you know, back out of those 6-0 beads just so that I'm working only with my super duos, and that's the easiest way I found to make that happen. So now I know I need to connect this super duo. So I'm picking up 11-0, 6-0, 11-0, coming back down through the open hole of this super duo on the left. Then I'm going to pick up an 11-0, a 6-0, an 11-0, come back through the top hole of the super duo on my other unit to close the gap. And pass it back through my 6-0. Okay. So now I've gotten that all put together. But what I want to do is I'm going to come back through this connection just to tighten everything up. So I'm going to come back through. I'm coming out of the top hole of my super duo. I need to go through these top beads on this side of the bridge, connection bridge. There I went through an 11-0, a 6-0, and 11-0. Now I've got to pass through this top hole of that super duo, the 11-0, the 6-0, and the 11-0. And then just pull it nice and tight. Then I'll come through the top hole of the super duo on the other side. And see how that tightened everything up really nice for me. Then I'm just going to work mine a little ways through. I'm going to reinforce this other side as well. And then I'll meet you guys back here and we'll tie off our thread. So I've reinforced my beadwork, but now I need to end this thread. So I'm coming out of the 6/0. I passed back through the top hole of my super duo right there, and also through this 6/0. So now I'm just going to go on through the crescent and the 6/0 in the same direction as my thread is heading. And I'm going to tie a 1/2 inch knot. So I'm going to take my needle, I'm going to pass under the thread between this 6/0 and this super duo. And I'm just going to slide it up in there. And I'm going to pull forward slowly till I create this little loop of thread right here between that super duo and that 6/0. I'll take my needle and pass it through that loop, and then I'm going to pull it down in there snug between this super duo and the 6/0, and that hides that little knot. Then I'm going to move forward on through that super duo and try to get through my 6/0 too. And it's getting really tight in there, if you'll notice that. That's why I said to use the smaller needle, the size 12, because this beadwork is getting really tight. Now I'm going to take my time, because it's, I don't know if I can get it through there or not, but yeah, I did. So what happened is I went through the super duo, 6/0, crescent, and 6/0. And I'll pull it through. So now I'm sitting here between this really hard to reach super duo and that 6/0, so I'm going to back out of that 6/0. Just the same way we've been doing. I'm just going to take my needle and go back through it in the opposite direction, because I want my working thread to be between the crescent and the 6/0. Once again, I'm just going to slide my needle underneath the thread between those two beads, pull really slow, form a little loop, put my needle through the loop, and then cinch that little 1/2 inch knot right in between the 6/0 and the crescent. And I'm going to do this a couple of times, you know, and then I'm just going to end my thread. And there's my beautiful little bangle.